Hey y'all, Casey here. I am a post-op trans woman. By that I mean I have had sexual reassignment surgery, or SRS. SRS is actually a bunch of surgeries, usually done all at the same time. Some of the surgeries that are included in SRS are an orchiectomy and a vaginoplasty. In this video, I will be talking about SRS as it relates to trans women and the pros and cons of getting SRS. I feel like I need to give a warning before going further with this video though. SRS is intense. In this video, I don't shy away from any of the unpleasant details, so if you're at all squeamish, maybe skip this one, because the following is a really real, frank, and somewhat graphic discussion of bodies and sexual activity. Okay, you've been warned. Continue at your own risk. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about some background on SRS. Sex reassignment surgery is so named because it is intended to change your sex to one that aligns with your gender identity. Specifically, it is intended to change your genitalia. It was traditionally what was required to legally change your sex. Some states no longer require it, but others still do. And interestingly enough, this is actually a more common requirement to legally change your sex in European countries, several of which require you to be sterilized before you can legally change your sex. But even that is changing. Not all trans women want SRS for a number of reasons, but there are many who do. To many trans women, SRS is seen as the sort of holy grail out of all the various surgeries you can get to make your body more closely aligned to your gender identity. There are many barriers to getting SRS, which include, but are not limited to, long wait lists and extremely high costs. There are plenty of pros to getting SRS. Like I said earlier, a big one is that it can make your body look more like how you feel, which can help reduce dysphoria. It definitely did this for me. It can allow you to feel more comfortable in a wider range of clothing, and it can make it so you no longer have to tuck. In this way, it can make you more passable, which is especially nice when you're in women-only spaces like locker rooms, which can be stressful even if you do have SRS. It can also make sex more comfortable for several reasons. This next pro might seem a little small, but if you get SRS, you will never have to take spironolactone ever again. Spironolactone is a pill that most trans women have to take to block your testosterone. And trust me, the feeling of not having to take one more pill a day is really nice. Like I said, there are plenty of reasons why SRS is such a sought-after surgery. What doesn't get talked about as much, though, are the cons to getting SRS. Getting SRS is not all sunshine and rainbows. Just having to put up with all the barriers to getting SRS is enough for some people to not want to get it. If you were to pay full price for SRS without insurance in the US, you could use that same amount of money to buy a new car or put a down payment down on a house. So those are some pretty substantial financial motivations to not necessarily want to get SRS. Another barrier to getting SRS is the fact that you have to go off hormones for a certain amount of time before getting SRS, which can be really rough. The wait list for SRS can be years long. This is in part because there just aren't that many surgeons who do this surgery. Different surgeons use different techniques, but some surgeons require you to get electrolysis on the surgical site before you can have surgery, and that is like some medieval torture. I was someone who unfortunately had to get electrolysis before getting surgery, and it hurts just thinking about it right now. Like, I've got a really high pain tolerance, and still, it was like so brutal. Also, if you go with a surgeon who does require electrolysis, that'll add a couple $1,000 extra to the price of your surgery. Even if a surgeon is really skilled, the bodies people are born with can impact the surgeon's ability to produce desirable results. The worry of how you'll look post-SRS is a big one for some trans women. It's kind of a roll of the dice. You can ask your surgeon for pictures and do your research, but at the end of the day, you just kind of have to take the plunge and hope for the best. So, let's say you make it through all of that and you get the surgery. Okay, your next worry is not dying. It's an incredibly intense and painful surgery that is prone to complications, which can range from the mundane to death. When I say it is a painful surgery, I mean that it is utterly excruciating. It made the pre-surgery electrolysis look like a mere pinprick in comparison. The ever-present pain doesn't go away for a long time either. Hopefully your doctor gives you decent pain meds, but mine refused to give me anything stronger than Norco, which basically did nothing in comparison to how severe the pain was. It's a buy the ticket, take the ride type of situation too. So once you take that plunge, there's no turning back. I was in so much pain that my mind would do this weird time travel thing to try to go back to a time before having the surgery done, but that's not how it works. There is no escaping the pain. You just have to bear it. My strategy for dealing with the pain was to break time up into much smaller increments. Whether it was 10 minutes or an hour, I would tell myself, okay, you just have to make it through these next 10 minutes, or okay, you just have to make it one more hour till lunchtime. Breaking the recovery time into these smaller chunks was the only way that my brain could handle the pain that it was having to deal with. I was so incredibly thankful that my family was able to come visit me in the hospital. Each time they would come to visit was a heavenly distraction from the ever-present, horrifying pain. Frankly, I don't know how people make it through SRS without friends and family there to support them. My surgery literally almost killed me, by the way. I remember being in the ICU and thinking, oh, okay, I'm dying. Well, guess I've had a good run. I lost so much blood, both during surgery and in the next several weeks that I was recovering in the hospital, that it was not looking good for me. The nurses had to come into my room every couple of hours and change the blood-drenched pad that they had put underneath me to sop up all of the life force that wouldn't stop oozing out of my body. I got so many blood transfusions that I lost count. Fun fact about getting that many blood transfusions, by the way, it can make your blood itch and make you nauseous. So those sensations got added on to the ever-present pain as well. Other fun complications that I experienced included necrotic tissue and an abscess. The recovery process is incredibly long. I was in the hospital for weeks and bedridden for most of it. I was bedridden for so long that I ended up being like the bride from Kill Bill, and I had to literally learn how to walk again. I was not allowed to leave the hospital until I could make 10 laps around the unit that I was in. Once you get discharged from the hospital, though, it's not like the healing is suddenly over. There is still more bleeding, you might still have open wounds with horrifying sutures slowly falling out of your body, and other remnants of the horrifying medical nightmare that you just lived through. I was still laid up for 2 months after getting discharged from the hospital. A lot of people cannot just lay around for months on end, so the recovery time ends up being a barrier too. Oh yeah, remember sitting down like I'm doing right now? Well, forget being able to do that for a long time. Eventually, you will be thankful that you are able to sit down even with pain, because at least that will be something different from laying on your back for every moment of every day for months. Another potential complication is how SRS can affect your sex life. Hopefully, it only impacts your sex life in a positive way, but for some people, it can cause you to lose the ability to have an orgasm. This was one of the scariest things for me personally, but I am happy to say that I have not lost the ability to have an orgasm. Not only did I not lose the ability to have an orgasm, but SRS actually improved my sex life in a number of ways. For example, I pretty much got to say goodbye to having a refractory period, which was awesome. Another positive is that I now feel much more complex, diverse sensations from having sex. One more drawback to having SRS, though, is that if you don't have one long-term monogamous partner, you're probably going to have to do some additional explaining either before or during sex going forward. If you've made it this far, you've got your surgery, you've healed up, now you get to look forward to a lifetime of dilating. At first, you have to dilate some insane number of times every day, but thankfully, that number does decrease, and eventually it's just every couple days, and it can be even less if you're regularly having vaginal penetrative sex. Dilating, for those who don't know, is using an instrument that looks like the least sexiest sex toy to maintain your vaginal depth. Another lifelong adjustment is that you are now in an extreme medical minority. As if genitals weren't medically complicated enough, you've just added an extra layer of complication. What do you do if you have problems with your surgical site years down the line? Go back to your surgeon? What if your surgeon is super far away? Half the globe away in some cases. Do you go to an OBGYN? This came up for me recently. It's been many years since I got SRS, and yet I recently had a complication with my surgical site. I first went to a generalist because I was worried that an OBGYN might turn me away, but the generalist ended up not really knowing what to do. The generalist sent me to an ultrasound technician and then to an OBGYN, where exactly what I was worried about happening happened, which did not leave me feeling very good. Despite all that, I'm glad I got SRS, but I also see how it's not for everyone. It has helped reduce my dysphoria dramatically. I love how my body looks now, and I feel very lucky to have it look this way. If you're thinking about getting SRS though, give some serious thought to the cons, because the road to getting and living with SRS is not an easy one, nor is it for the faint of heart. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you got something out of this video, please click those like and subscribe buttons. Until next time.